for one, thank you all for coming. I really appreciate all your support and out tonight. Been working hard, knocking on the doors, walking the parades, and trying to make sure we keep this district red. And I think it's critically important that we keep Republican control of the House in St. Paul. And Speaker Daudt here tonight, and he's going to talk a little more about that. But I'd really like to thank Speaker Daudt for all of his work in St. Paul. He's really been on the front lines, just stopping a lot of the anti-business agenda we see coming from the governor and from the Senate and really like to thank him for that. And we'll listen a little bit from the speaker. Thanks for coming.
Well, thank you all for coming out. Drew said it right. I mean, the most important thing this election cycle is that we hold on to our Republican majority in the Minnesota House. Bar none, that is the most important thing that we have to accomplish this election cycle. So every one of these races is incredibly important. And Drew has just been a phenomenal member of our caucus, really stepped up, and he's a great leader, and I think has earned a lot of respect in this community. And not that we're worried about his re-election, we think he's going to be great. But we need him also to be locked down here so he can go out and help us get some of the races that might be a little closer, help get those numbers across the finish line, and make sure that we hold on to that majority. I'll talk maybe just a little bit about where we're at right now. I know there was a lot of discussion as session ended. The governor vetoed our tax bill. He obviously didn't need to do that, but he wanted to get that kind of drug into negotiations for a bonding bill. I actually had lunch with the governor last Tuesday. Finally got everybody else out of the room. It was just the two of us. A few weeks before that, I tried to get it just him and I and Tom Bach, and he wouldn't meet with me. Last week, it was just the two of us for lunch, and we had a good meeting. I think he's ready to cave on everything. So I'm being very, very sincere and very serious. The holdups at the end of session, they tried to add an amendment onto our bonding bill that would have allowed for Southwest Light Rail. They're willing now to walk away from that. We're going to probably have to give him just a little bit more bonding, or probably reprioritize our bonding bill to get him a couple of his projects. But he's agreed to do the tax bill and the bonding bill pretty close to the way we have it right now, which will look like a huge win for us. The bonding bill that we had at the end of session would have been the biggest road bridge funding package in the state history. We would have put $700 million of new money into roads and bridges one time. It would have knocked off some of the most important road bridge projects in the entire state. Highway 14 in southern Minnesota, Highway 23 in western Minnesota, Highway 12 out of the West Metro, which is the most dangerous stretch of highway in the entire state. Would have
Cliff Road intersection right out there.
There were projects into this district, including some transit stuff. The Orange Line that comes down into Burnsville was in that project, which is actually a transit project that makes sense. And we're not against transit. We want transit that makes sense. We just don't think it makes sense to build a $2 billion train for 14 miles to the West Metro. So I'm really glad that I think we're going to be able to get a special session put together to get the needed tax relief. That tax bill was about $800 million of this and the next biennium of relief for middle-class Minnesotans for the most part. $550 million of ongoing permanent tax relief. Those are the kinds of things that we think Minnesotans want and need. And we did some things that frankly, I'm really proud of. Probably the single thing that I'm most proud of was the fact that we, for the first time now, are exempting retiree benefits for our veterans. Yeah. I think we were one of 5 states that still was taxing career military retiree benefits, and now they're going to be exempt from state income tax on their veteran retiree benefits, which is a huge deal. And frankly, folks that spent their career in the military can retire anywhere. They're used to moving around, so they weren't retiring back in Minnesota. We had a proportionately small number of retirees, military retirees here in Minnesota, so really proud that we're able to do that. And a lot of other great things in those bills, but really proud of the work that Drew did this last session, and he's been a really valued member of the caucus, so I'm really happy and thankful that you all showed up tonight to show him a little support, and he's going to be really helpful in helping us get a lot of our other members elected around the state. So with that, I can probably take a question or two if you want. Go ahead.
I know it's what's status in the negotiations for the Metro Council strategies? Is there anything in this?
On
the Metro Council strategy?
You know, I think we're kind of deadlocked on that right now because the Democrats don't seem willing to kind of give on any of the real Met Council reforms. They talked about, staggering the terms or setting up a nominating committee, which to me is just fluff around the edges. It's not real reform. I did have a candid conversation with the governor last week about that, and we shared some ideas. I think we need to start looking at, frankly, long term. No governor is willing to do any real reform during a Republican governor would, but this governor is not willing to do real reform during his term because right now the governor controls the Met Council. He makes all the appointments. So in order for us to have real reform, I think we're going to have to look out beyond and do kind of have it take effect 6 or 8 years out. But as of right now, it's not part of the negotiations, and the reason is we've gotten them to back down from the funding for Southwest Light Rail. So had they demanded Southwest Light Rail, I'm not sure we would have done it anyway. But we would have certainly demanded some real reforms on Met Council. One of the other problems, and it flies a little under the radar, is CTIB, which is the County Transit Improvement Board. It was something that was created back in 2008. It came out of that transit funding legislation. But CTIB is a partnership between 5 counties. And actually, we're in Dakota County here. Dakota County now has given notice that they want out. Anoka County also wants out. And the reason is CTIB controls that quarter-cent sales tax for those 5 counties. Basically, counties like Dakota and Anoka are net contributors. They're not getting the transit projects back in these areas. So it's going to fund rail projects in Hennepin and Ramsey counties, and Dakota's not included. So the other problem with CTIB is it's duplicative on Met Council. The nice thing about CTIB is it's an elected county commissioner from each one of those 5 counties that are involved. So you have some local government representation. The problem with it, however, is it's weighted voting. So Hennepin County gets 46% of the vote. Right? So all they need to do is convince one other person to vote with them, and they can get whatever they want. Well, Ramsey County does vote with them. So this isn't a perfect system. So we need to kind of combine those two into one, take its power away, and get it back to either elected or appointed local government officials without weighted voting. And we're probably a long ways from that, but we need to start thinking long term. I think we're the only major metropolitan area that has a Met Council type structure where the governor appoints all the members of the council, and they have so much power, levy authority, and all they can control growth and development. So they're a problem. Yeah. Any other questions for me?
So we've stopped them this time.
Yeah.
So how long until they come back around in another year?
Well, we got some good news today. I've been a little concerned that the revenues have been slowing down. We had I remember this now. Last November we had a $1.2 billion projected surplus. In February, that was where were we? 900 million. But the problem is that 1.2 from last November, it actually was 1.8. It included 600 million that went into reserves by statute. So we went from 1.8 to 900 million. The surplus for the current biennium cut in half from November to February. Well, today we got the revenue numbers for July, the actuals, and we're up about 200 million. And that's been somewhat consistent now for the last few months. So I was worried we were headed back into another deficit, which definitely would have meant Democrats would want to raise taxes. But if we in the November forecast get another call for a pretty good sized surplus ongoing, I think that'll give us the ammo we need to say, all right, this is long term. Let's now do some real structural targeted tax cuts that will help us grow our economy and help create some good paying jobs. To your question though about we meet them this time, they're going to probably try to do whatever they can to get Southwest Light Rail, and they just have a different view of the world than we do. They believe in this stuff. They think it's the answer. How they do, I don't know. I look at North Star, the one that goes up the Big Lake. This is commuter rail. Okay, North Star cost $400 million to build. Okay, This new one is
2 billion.
2 billion. It's 1.8 or 1.9 billion. That's without any cost overruns. Okay. The subsidy alone right now per ride for North Star is $22 per ride. That's on top of what each person pays for their own ticket. And most of them are probably paying $8 or $12 for their ticket, okay? $22 per ride. And it's commuter rail, right? So they're riding to work in Minneapolis and back. And that's the average, so it doesn't matter if they ride from Fridley or Big Lake. And by the way, that's per ride, so round trip is double. $44 per person per day is what we're paying for every person that rides that. Do the math. Do the math on that. I mean, it's $900 a month. You could lease a brand new Mercedes for every person that rides that train, pay for all their gas, and still have money left over. That's how efficient it is.
And there were alternatives they could do, like van tolls, other things. There was no real aggressive efforts put on any place buses.
Yeah.
What's our subsidy on a typical bus line? Let's say
They say it's like $2,
Okay.
between
How much
$1.50
bread
and $2.50.
gets delivered on that light rail?
Say it again.
How much bread or groceries or anything gets delivered on that light rail? Not one thing. The other question I have is, does he talk like that when you're talking to him in private?
We actually get along well, and I'm just a believer that you have to. You know, we can disagree with somebody 100%, but you still, you know, they elected him and they elected us, and
Yeah.
we got to work together. And so I do. And you know, I still try to treat him as respectfully as I can, but he's difficult to work with. He just has a different view of the world. Another example of a bad example of a transit project is this bus rapid transit they want to put out to the West Metro, or excuse me, East Metro, out to Woodbury. What do they call it? The Gold Line. So it's bus rapid transit. And at first when I heard about this one, I thought, well, if we have to swallow some transit, this might be one we could live with. They were asking for $3 million. What I didn't realize at the time, $3 million was just for the study. Because I thought, sure, we'll buy some buses for $3 million, we'll run them on the shoulder.
You know,
It'll be
Charlie
pretty
Shelley
efficient.
knows how to run a bus line.
Yeah.
He should be able to tell you right there, right?
$3 million is just for the study. $485 million is the projected cost, and what they want to do isn't just buy buses. They want to actually put in a dedicated lane in each direction just for the buses to travel on.
Don't you think that would
$485
be
million.
better to the Southwest line? I think that would be an absolute win to
Well,
the Southwest line.
Here's the kicker.
They have
There already are express buses that run on the shoulder between St. Paul and Woodbury.
Southwest.
Here's the real kicker. The express bus that runs on the shoulder right now, will complete the trip 12 minutes faster than the new bus on the dedicated lane.
So what's the value add?
There isn't any.
It's economic development is what they claim.
That's what they
Light
claim.
rail. They claim
And you know what? And that's what I said to the governor. If Southwest Light Rail, if we're doing it not to move people, but for economic development, I've got other ideas on what we could do that are better ideas for economic
That's the whole
development.
thing. That's the whole
You know,
thing about it. That
yeah.
their whole the green line, the whole bit with what they have. It's all about economic development
Yeah.
and job.
Well, there's a lot of things you can do better for economic development than build trains. So the only thing that the trains help are the consulting companies that
Well,
come up
no,
with the
they
ideas.
help the people that build them, and the contractors,
For a
and
short
the
time.
federal government, but we have to subsidize it for $18 million a year.
September this question.
Probably.
Now, a serious question.
Yeah.
Let's rewind 4 days or so, or whatever it's been. Crazy, right? Where do you go with that?
You know,
What's the right role for you guys,
I'm not sure. You know,
people in general?
frankly, I think the governor. I hope he regrets what he said.
Well, I hope he does.
When he came out and said this wouldn't have happened if this guy was quiet. I mean, first of all, our job as leaders in the state isn't to jump to some conclusion or think we know what happened. Now, I watched that entire video on Facebook. It's pretty tough to watch. And it kind of does lead you to a conclusion. However, the video starts after the shooting, right? So we don't have any clue what happened. We don't know why he was pulled over. We don't know anything other than what she said. So we need to let that whole process work itself out. And we have the best Bureau of Criminal Apprehension that'll do an investigation on this. I will tell you that the Democrats in Minnesota get a ton of pressure from Black Lives Matter and these sorts of groups. But I will also remind folks that Black Lives Matter is not a grassroots organization that just kind of grew up out of some sort of need. We had a House staffer that used to work for the DFL caucus that went to work for an organization called Communities Organizing for Change. Okay? That organization used to be called Acorn. His job, he's paid, his job is to organize Black Lives Matter. I mean, Democrats believe that if there is, social kind of uprise or unrest in the community, that will help them. And if they can create, that's why they're talking about, picketing or protesting at the national convention. They want to create this sort of, it's not grassroots. And frankly, they wanted money in the last session for racial inequity, which is basically, minority folks in these communities, there's a bigger disparity between what they make as an income and what white folks in the same community make. Okay? And I said, no, this is a really simple problem to solve. Okay? We have one of the highest racial disparities on wages in the country. And guess what? We have the highest achievement gap in the country. Okay? And if you don't think those two are connected, you don't belong in St. Paul. Okay? And you don't belong leading anything. Okay? The fact that minority students aren't getting the same education, and we have the biggest disparity in the entire country, and then, it's no wonder less than 50% of minorities in Minneapolis are graduating high school. And it's no damn wonder they're not making as much money as they get out the workforce. The only way to solve that problem long term is to fix the education problem in our Minneapolis.
And this guy right here you're on what committee are you on? You're on one of the education.
Education, finance, education.
He's right there. He's at the center.
And they are the ones really pushing the reforms. And we want school choice. We want every minority student in Minneapolis. We want their parents to be able to put them in a private school if that situation works better for them. And there are private schools. Public schools are graduating less than 50% of minorities in Minneapolis, and private schools or charter schools in those same districts taking those same kids have a 100% graduation rate and a 90% college placement rate. Okay? And that will actually hold our public schools accountable and force them to be more competitive and force them to deliver better results if they want to stay viable. And that's the same thing that you all are accustomed to in your business and the environment that you have to compete in. And those same principles would help these kids be more successful by forcing the schools to be more outcome-oriented and making sure we're graduating these kids. And that will ultimately solve that problem. So you can't solve it by throwing a few $1 million at it short term. So and those are the kinds of ideas that we keep pressing in St. Paul, and we'll continue. But we need your help, and it is vitally important that we keep the majority. When we took the majority 2 years ago, we ended what was 2 years of complete Democratic control. And as ugly as that was actually Democrats holding back. They were actually trying to look reasonable. Okay? They will not make that mistake again. We hear what they talk about. We see the bills they introduce. This group of Democrats that's running the party right now is a really progressive. They have just a different way of looking at the world, and they will not hold back. So Katie barred the door if we don't hold the majority in the House this year. It's literally the most important thing this cycle. So just your coming tonight and helping out Drew helps us accomplish that. So from me, thank you very much for coming out and showing some support. If you want to know other ways you can get involved, certainly pull me aside or Drew aside. We'll give you some other names of some other candidates or the caucus to certainly use help too. But this is going to be all hands on deck, making sure that we don't miss this opportunity to hold the majority, and we've got to keep them from getting complete control back. And it would be Dayton's last 2 years with a complete Democratic control. We've got to make sure we prevent him from getting it. So anyway, thank you so much for coming out.